Welcome to the Rick Helps Real Estate Show. It just wasn't that long ago that I did a video called Panic Selling about Canadians selling their properties and vowing not to come back to the United States while Donald Trump is president. And the video just exploded as people were arguing back and forth. And then I met these gentlemen that I'm about to pull up here talking about Canadians leaving. And I said, well, how bad is it? And I come across their website here. It says, why Canadians invest in the real estate market. Canadians are seizing U.S. real estate opportunities. Eric Lynch reports surge in cross-border loan demand. So who better to reach out to than to reach out with Eric Lynch. How are you today with Monarch Equity Partners?
Wonderful. How are you today? Thanks for having me.
Terrific. Thanks for joining. I ended up meeting Chris. He reached out to me a couple weeks ago, and we finally got together and had a cup of coffee. And I said, so, geez, how bad is it? And he goes, oh, we got all kinds of business people buying down here.
Yep.
And that surprised me based on the comments that I saw on my YouTube video. So what the heck is going on?
Well, so I have been in kind of this Canadian market for going on 15 plus years. And I've never really had, regardless of what's going on with the economy or the market, my clients have always been really interested, want to be in the U.S., have property in the U.S. If they own property already, they're not trying to get out and go back to Canada. That just has not been my experience. And then right now we're having an influx of people of just wanting to be out of Canada and into the U.S. right now. So it's a very busy time. We've been extremely busy.
So as mad as they are at the United States right now, there's probably an equal number that are just as mad as at Canada.
I think it's the same as the U.S., right? You got some people on one side of the fence, some people on the other, and it depends on who you're listening to. But I think the same thing's happening in Canada. You've got people that, are not happy with what's going on with there, and they want to get out. Just like here in the U.S., people are sometimes unhappy with how the election goes. So,
yeah, when the first blush as the video came out, people are saying, "Oh, good, now we're finally going to have a growth in inventory. Get out of here, sell your house." Social media, the keyboard warriors come out in force, and they probably will on this video as well too.
I'm sure.
I couldn't keep up with the comments. I had over 2,000. I just couldn't do it. But so I kind of started looking, and we have a data service down here called the Cromford Market Report, and they had some numbers that came out that said, well, just how much ownership is there in our market, Maricopa and Pinal counties, and based on a Canadian tax address. So single family detached homes, they own 4,600 homes. They own more condos. Canadians own 5,940 condos, townhouses, 551 mobile homes. What has changed is the number of listings. And that is in April of 2024, there were 50 single family homes for sale. April 2025, that number has tripled to 150. Mm-hmm. So there is a bit of an exodus on the percentage side. Condos, we had 29 condos listed by Canadians in April 2024 and 148 this year. So there is some vacating going on. In fact, I know of a Canadian down in Sun Lakes that said he was not going to come back next year, and then a couple weeks later goes, "Yeah, we're coming back." So, yeah. But you offer some financing. Tell me what kind of things are different financing a foreign purchaser in the United States than what we see down here, and also tell me a little bit about how loans are put together in Canada.
Yeah. So I want to go back though to your comment about the listings.
Yeah.
On there. So almost all of my clients are investors, right? And so I think one other aspect of all those listings would be that people are starting to move again. People are starting to want to do business, right? So people are selling their property. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're getting out of Maricopa County or Arizona, but they're selling a property and they're looking for something else.
Oh, okay.
So So yeah, I could see why the listings are up. But my experience with my investors are they're not necessarily leaving to go back to Canada, but just like any investor, they're buying and selling, and that's a big part of our business where it's, people are selling, but they're trying to buy a new one, right? So I don't know that everybody's trying to get out necessarily. So I wouldn't put those two together if it was me personally. But
So money goes where the opportunity is.
exactly. Yep. So, and then your next question was on loans. So we have, like I mentioned, I've been doing this about 15 years with just Canadians as my clients that make about 95% of my business. We can, there really truly isn't a huge difference between financing a Canadian in the US and financing a Canadian or US citizen and a Canadian. There's not a huge difference between the two. But we do have some unique programs where somebody coming just to buy a house can put 25% down. They don't need tax returns, income, credit, anything. They can just come in, buy, as long as they have the down payment and the market rent of the property equals the payment, they can get a loan. It's pretty simple, easy process, not a lot of headaches, with that. So that is one type of program that we offer. But we can finance pretty much anything. You mentioned mobile home parks, you mentioned multifamily, commercial, all that. We can do all across the board. Our specialty is if you're Canadian, let's see what we can do and what we can put together for you.
Yeah, there's a lot of big business down here on park models.
Mm-hmm.
You'll go by some of the over 55 communities and you'll see a U.S. flag and a Canadian flag
All day. I think Sun Lake has one too. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they leave now, by Easter. They because they can only come down for 6 months and then they're out. I mean, there's a lot of chatter about what it's going to be like crossing the border, what it's going to be like coming down here, what kind of visa or permission slip do you have to have per se, and those rules are changing liquid. I tend to just sit back and go, well, let's just wait and see what happens.
Exactly. And it's all going to wash away. I mean, here's the thing. The United States and Canada, we're friends. We're not enemies. I know Trump's making some headways there and there's some rhetoric going back and forth. But at the end of the day, we love Canada. Canada loves us. People are going to come back and forth. We're not worried about that. It's all going to subside.
Well, I grew up in a border town. I grew up in Port Angeles, Washington, which is right across the water from Victoria, British Columbia. So
yeah, for sure.
In fact, I was there just 2 years ago, and we used to ride the ferry boat over to Victoria just to walk around a lot, and we were, even as a teenager, well versed in the value of the Canadian dollar versus the U.S. dollar, and which when I was working in a grocery store, a little tiny convenience store, you handed me a Canadian $5 bill, I didn't know what to do. I just had to turn to my boss, and he pulls out a calculator. Okay, ring it up this way. Now you just use a debit card or credit card and it just figures it all out. But I think today the Canadian dollar is 74 cents versus US, right?
I haven't looked today, so I'm not quite sure what it is today, but
I think that's
that would be an up from where it was for sure. Yeah.
Because it was 69 cents for a while. Is that having an impact on your Canadian investors purchasing down here?
I would say it probably does have an impact for new Canadian investors, like someone who hasn't been here before, kind of unsure, all that kind of stuff. But the people that are already here, that have already bought a property, own a property, maybe they own a business, whatever, that isn't affecting them because they've always kind of been used to that ride. I mean, for a while there, it was great. In 2010, 11, 12, it was kind of on par. But for the most part, if you look historically, Canadian dollar is kind of where it is right now today compared to the US dollar. So people that are already here, I don't think it affects them much. Business is business. They're used to it. They're keeping their money here. So, but new money, probably. Yeah, probably if there are some people that are a little bit shy with, taking 30% of the money. Yeah.
How is, kind of a general question, how is the real estate market in Canada? And it probably varies from the East Coast to the West Coast, but generally speaking, let's just say Vancouver and Calgary.
Yeah. So Vancouver, it's tough. That's a tough market right now. Things are down. Prices are down. I'm not sure. I mean, we don't necessarily work in that particular market, because we lend here in the US. But from what I hear from the clients, it's not a good market. Calgary kind of goes with the oil, right? Oil's down. So there's not a whole lot going on there. But what I'm hearing is that it's not a great market right now in the housing market there.
Well, we're definitely seeing some softness down here right now, and inventory is climbing, and there's many schools of thought about that. Some people are like, oh man, it's climbing at historic rates, and maybe as a percentage is how much it's going up every week. Yeah, but where we're at now is considered normal inventory. Now, if we keep going, going to blow past that, but it's interesting. I pulled up our expired listings this morning. I track everything every day on a 7-day moving average, and we had 1,900 people let their listing expire. Now, normally that runs about 200, 250. So because it's April 1st, their listing contract expired at midnight on the 31st, so it shows up as an expired listing today. That's a huge number. And it rolled out to where now we have, so I look at net new listings and new listings that are hitting the market over 7 days. We only have 1,100 of them because of the subtraction of the almost 2,000 in expireds. And then we have 3,184 contracts. So we got more contracts than new listings, which means next week when the new listing numbers come out, it's not going to be a spike up. So I'm not so sure how much higher our inventory is going to get or how much lower our sales are going to get. They've been hanging down here about 3,000 to 3,200 almost all year.
Yep.
But because it hasn't been enough to gobble up the current inventory as it comes on, our inventory number grows week after week after week. Not like anything like what we saw in 07 and 08, but there are more opportunities out there now for buyers. You can look at a house and go home and think about it.
Yep. Yeah.
And your investors are probably enjoying some of that too. Although I did read last week that investor activity has really dropped off in our market.
Depends. I mean, depends on what you're looking for, I guess,
Yeah. Yeah. What type of properties are the most appealing for the investors that you work with?
On the Canadian side, I mean, obviously single family Airbnb type stuff are very, very popular. People love those. You mentioned condos. Condos are a big thing. People have those townhomes. They like to come down and use them when they're here, then rent them out and basically pay the mortgage when they're not. It used to be, though, multifamily apartments, but those are very hard to come by right now. They're overpriced. Yeah. The rents are down. There's not a lot. There's nothing out there right now to pick over, but that used to be a very, very big part of the business. But right now, it's pretty much single family.
Well, multifamily apartments right now, I mean, from what I can just see visually and in the numbers, we're about to have a glut. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're just overbuilding down here like crazy. Just take a short drive through Tempe. What the hell is going on here? And Gilbert. Oh, it's nuts. Yep. So I would imagine that investment is, just sit back and watch and wait. What are your opinions of the multitude of people on YouTube that say a crash is coming?
I don't foresee a crash. I don't see it. I tend not to listen to much that's on the internet or anything like that. Everybody's got an opinion about everything. But if you look at metrics of what would constitute a crash, I'm not seeing what would make it crash. There would need to be something, Armageddon like globally that might cause something, but I don't think anything internally in the United States is going to cause anything to crash. I don't see it. I don't see it.
Yeah, to me, I mean, there has to be a catalyst. Things don't crash just because they went up too fast.
Right.
That happens to cars, but not really. Exactly. And I don't project out on my channel. I'll go out maybe like right now I'm saying it's going to be a soft summer. There's no doubt about it because I don't see anything changing on the interest rate front anytime soon. I don't see much changing on the trend of inventory for inventory going the other way. So it's pretty easy to say, yeah, it's going to be a soft market, although we're pretty busy. Yeah. I work with a team of agents and there's like 3 or 4 of us that work together and we've got something going every week now. So it's not dead. It's slower than what it has been.
Exactly. And we are seeing a lot of picked up interest from our investors. People are getting anxious to do things. Whether or not there's a deal out there to be had, that's a different story. But people are ready to start making things happen. So yeah, I agree with you. I think it is going to be a little bit of slow summer. Summer tends to be slow here anyway. But if and when interest rates do start to drop, that's when you're going to see things start to really pick up. Because if you think about it, I think there's some stat out there: 75% of the homeowners out there are below 3% on their interest rate right now. So there's not really why would you sell? You're going to sell your 3% interest rate in your property to go buy something at 6.5%. There's just not a lot out there, right? Nobody's trying to move. But if interest rates do drop, you're going to have a huge influx of people into the market. The market's going to start moving. Prices are going to go up, and that's what Trump's trying to do right now as well. I mean, he's trying to drive the interest rates down.
Well, and tariffs are tariffs. I mean, we haven't had any experience on the impact of tariffs, except now that there's so much chatter about it that it gave people anxiety. And we saw people waiting in October going, I'm waiting till after the election. I'm just waiting. And now we had the election. They're going, well, I'm waiting to see what he's going to do. And then he announces the tariffs and they're going, I'm waiting to see how this impacts everything. And to me, that's people just waiting. Eventually they're going to go, okay, I'm in. Now we have an affordability problem. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
Prices are coming down, not a lot, but they are coming down in a pretty good clip in some areas. I don't think we're at the state that I'm seeing of the Reventure Consulting saying we're going to crash again. But it's definitely softening up. I think the tariff talk right now, I think in just a few short months, we're going to look back and go, what tariffs?
Well, there's always been tariffs, right? Tariffs have been around forever, and it's going to go bye-bye. Everything's going to get even out. Everybody's going to play on the same field. Things are going to work. Even with China, we're going to get it worked out with China as well, and it's going to be a fair playing field. And nobody's going to think about it.
And there's so much information on the tariffs too. Even talking about Canadian tariffs, like 300% on dairy. Well, that's not necessarily true.
Exactly.
There are tariffs that kick in after we reach a certain volume of trade, which in the most of the measurements we haven't. So that's just people saying, screw Canada. Look at this. Well, wait, do some homework. Don't be the keyboard warrior. Do some actual reading.
Well, and depending on what TV station you want to turn on and hear what you hear.
Yeah. That's a whole nother video.
Yeah.
But, I'll be interested to keep track of this and check back with you and see what's going on. I mean, because what we're discovering here today with you is that it's not anywhere near what the reaction was that I saw from my video, and what the reaction was from people saying that they're leaving, they're bailing. I am seeing a big impact in Yuma and Palm Springs. They're in panic mode. The Canadians are not coming back next year, but next year's a long way away. So maybe they will. My brother was in a park in Palm Springs. He came down from Washington with his fifth wheel, and he met a lot of Canadians that go, nah, we just don't feel welcome. We're going to sit it out a year. Now, maybe people don't feel welcome politically because of the president, but I know that neighbors that I see and friends, I don't know anybody that says, oh, I hope the Canadians don't come back. We kind of like it. It's $770 million in tax revenue for us here in Maricopa County.
Yep.
So of course we want them to come back. So
and we love Canada. I mean, here's the thing. Yes, maybe politically there's some things out there that are being said, but like you said, internet warriors, keyboard warriors. I don't think that the majority of people feel that way. I think there's just uncertainty, right? That people just don't know exactly what that means, or what do they need to have to come here. I mean, I've heard that one as well. Like, do I have to get a special visa to come down here now as opposed to just my passport or whatever? That's all going to wash away. There's not going to be any issues. And Canadians are going to come back and they're going to love it, and we're going to love them. And it's going to be.
Well, I've got your contact information in the description down below from the video. If anybody needs to reach out to you, just go down there and click on that, take you to their website, and it's got there all about their services and their contact information. And hope to have you back on again soon, and we can see what's actually happening. Maybe midsummer. See what's going on.
So let's absolutely do that. Let's set up another time, and we can kind of talk a little bit more.
Well, we Chris and I talked quite a bit having coffee, but we didn't take long for us to start talking about South Park episodes. So we
nice.
All right. It was good talking to you. Thanks for being on.
You too.
Take care.
Thank you so much for having me.
You
Appreciate
bet.
it. Have a good day.